Crystal Castles were the enigmatic electronic music duo who made waves and shook up the electronic music world. To the public, they were a new age punk band creating some of the most interesting and forward-thinking music at the time, hosting legendary live shows to crowds of adoring fans who appreciated the unapologetic music. But behind closed doors, things were much worse than any of the fans could have possibly imagined. 2003 was the first time Alice Glass and Ethan Kath would become acquainted, with Alice being 15 years old and Kath 26. Alice had run away from her home in order to live in a squat community of punks under the name Vicki Vale, where she started an all-girl experimental punk band. In December of 2003, shortly after Alice had run from home, she met Kath and began producing music with him, and Crystal Castles was formed. 2006 was the year the duo would see their first release with a track titled Alice Practice, a track that Kath claimed to have been a mic test for Alice that he accidentally recorded, a remarkable story for a track that soon became a big hit. This track got Crystal Castles on the map and scored them their first record deal. More singles followed, and eventually the duo were on their way to a UK tour. They were gaining popularity faster than anybody had expected, and their first official self-titled studio album saw its release in 2008. Next came Crystal Castles 2 in 2010, followed by Crystal Castles 3 in 2012, completing a trilogy of critically acclaimed and incredibly well-received albums. Then, in 2014, after such a meteoric rise to success, Alice left the Crystal Castles project, stating that it compromised her sincerity, honesty, and empathy for others. She stated that the Crystal Castles project was over and she intended to pursue a solo career, but the manager of Crystal Castles had other ideas and told the public that Crystal Castles would continue without her. After Alice's departure in 2016, Kath enlisted Edith Francis to join the band in Alice's place, continuing the project and releasing a fourth album titled Amnesty 1. The new duo performed a couple of sold-out shows and were planned to appear at SXSW, a concert organized to highlight women's income disparity. Alice expressed that she didn't think Kath was an appropriate person to headline a feminism-centered event, and Crystal Castles were removed from the lineup. After Alice's departure from the band, fans were confused and speculation was rampant. After a hugely successful 3-album run, to leave the project seemed unthinkable. What could make her leave the project? And why did the project continue even in her absence? From 2014 to 2017, this question would loom over fans' heads, and speculation about her departure would ramp up until Alice publicly spoke out against Ethan Kath. In a statement on her website, she revealed information not known to the public about what Kath was like behind closed doors. She detailed how, in her first interactions with Kath as a 15-year-old girl, she was supplied with alcohol and taken advantage of by a then 26-year-old man. Kath would stalk her after this incident, waiting outside her high school and preying on her. And at that age, she had been naive and perceived him as a local rock star. He had even gone so far as to entirely fabricate the Alice Practice story in order to downplay Alice's involvement in the creation of the track and highlight his own perceived achievement. Kath would give Alice drugs and alcohol and take advantage of her regularly, remaining sober during all of these interactions. He began to pick at Alice's insecurities and took control of her by using these against her. He controlled how much food she ate, restricted her access to social media, chose what clothes she would be allowed to wear, and regularly read through her personal emails. He limited her access to interviews, being unhappy if he couldn't be in control of them himself. He even prevented her from having her own credit card, taking control of her finances and keeping her within his grasp. Kath also held onto Alice's passport alongside controlling her finances, truly trapping her in this abusive cycle. What's more, in October of 2017, the former manager of Crystal Castles, James Sandham, claimed that the nature of Alice and Kath's relationship was unclear. Alice responded to this with screenshots of emails sent to him during his time as manager of the project, where Alice details the deranged and abusive things that Kath was doing, even with Sandham calling the nature of Kath's actions domestic abuse. Hi James, Claudio, which is Ethan Kath's real name, threw my phone out the window while we were driving last night. It was scary and dangerous and we could have gotten in an accident. I need a new phone now. Can you help me get another one for London? He can't do shit like this. He'll end up in jail. I will confront him face to face about it tomorrow. I've had enough of this shit. Thanks. I should really be able to have a phone and call who I want. He makes me want to quit when he acts like this. Of course you should, it's domestic abuse and I hate it. Next time, I'm going to call the cops. It was violent and I have a lot less hair on one side of my head. If he doesn't answer the question tomorrow with any honesty, I'll be the one calling the cops. This is a domestic abuse charge. He would end up in a cell. I'm not into it and can't let it go on. Now, I won't read out the whole transcript of these emails or of Alice's statement, but her statement is available on her website, and there is a lot more information on there than I can provide in this video. After this statement was released, Kath publicly denied the allegations, stating that they were pure fiction and that he was consulting his legal team about his options for responding. This resulted in Kath filing a lawsuit against Alice for defamation, but this lawsuit was dismissed in February of 2018. In May, Glass was awarded nearly $21,000 in attorney fees after Kath's lawyers sought to vacate the dismissal of this defamation lawsuit against Alice. Because of this statement, 4 other women came forward with stories about Kath, abusing and taking advantage of them when they were teenagers and he was in his mid to late 20s. They stated that he would use his notoriety from his band Kill Cheerleader and the Crystal Castles duo in order to coerce young women and supply them with drugs and alcohol. Alice also elaborated more on her statement, commenting that Kath had thrown her phone out of a moving car, torn her hair out, lied about the nature of a rib injury, and at several points had gone against doctors' orders and made her perform after she received a concussion. Alice stated that after discovering that Kath had done similar actions towards other women, she felt it was her responsibility to come forward. After this, Crystal Castles was truly finished, with nothing coming from the group since the statement's release and subsequent interviews. The abuse that Alice received is almost incomprehensible, with almost a decade of Kath preying on her naivety and grooming her from the age of 15 in order to retain control over her and the Crystal Castles name. Ethan Kath's actions are inexcusable, and I commend Alice for bringing them to light. I think even the most diehard fans of the project can understand and appreciate her leaving the project, and I sincerely hope she is able to heal and recover from this. The story is a clear and repeated case of domestic violence and emotional and physical abuse of a woman who was groomed, regularly taken advantage of, and controlled by a man who thought the world of himself and had no regard for the life that he was trying so desperately to ruin. While Alice doesn't support the Crystal Castles project anymore and urges fans to do the same, she has released a consistent output of music since her departure. In fact, even before her statement was released, she released her first single, Stillbirth, as a solo artist in July of 2015, using the money made from this release to aid victims of abuse, also using the song as a tool to magnify and bring awareness to issues of domestic abuse. Next came another single, Without Love, followed by her debut self-titled EP. In January of 2018, Alice continued her output of music, releasing 2 singles, Forgiveness and Cease and Desist, the latter she described as a call to arms for survivors. Her output of singles continued through to 2020, and in this year she spoke more about Crystal Castles, claiming she received very little in terms of royalties, disavowed her tenure from the band, and asked all fans to do the same, ceasing support for the project. Alice continued her output through 2021 when she released the single Suffer and Swallow before announcing her debut solo album Pray For, which she then released in February of 2020. Alice Glass's story is inspiring to say the least. To overcome the horrors she faced as a teenage girl and subsequently endure for almost a decade is beyond commendable. Her ability to be honest and clear in her music is something that shows the incredible strength she possesses as an artist and as a woman. Her story is one that is just the beginning, and one that sends a clear and concise message to people who do the deplorable things that Ethan Kath once did to her.